right. We are recording. Okay, well, there you go. It's already a minute after. Let's see, we still got some people joining. I will move this over here. So if I'm looking up, it's because I'm looking at you all, because I've got a screen that's like way up here. All right. Let me get my slides. Oh, of course, stuck on it. There we go. Let's share. Okay, you guys seeing the slides, I hope? All right.
Yep.
So welcome to CI Mastermind Live. I see a lot of familiar faces and I see some new faces. Welcome for the new faces and thanks for joining for the familiar faces. I will get into the material here. As always, session's recorded. We like to see your face. So if you could turn your camera on, it helps me so I don't feel like I'm talking to a wall. 45 minutes. I'll do a little introduction. I am the speaker today, so it's all on me. And it's a topic that I really like, so hopefully you will like it too. And then I'll after I do a little intro on my topic, I'll answer questions. I've already looked at a lot of your guys' questions. They're great. So thank you for submitting those. And I would also say Chris and I are working on topics for next year. We actually have quite a few already. But I would always wait the topics to come straight from the group. So if you have some things you'd like to add or you'd like me to, I have a pretty strong network. So if there's people that I need to bring in for a specific topic, I will absolutely do that. So please feel free to throw, pretty much anything in the operational continuous improvement space out there, and I'll see if I can make it a topic that we discuss. Okay, and you're in CI Mastermind Live, monthly discussions with professionals that we're all in the improvement space. We keep the group around, under 20. Brief learning on the topic. Today we're going to talk about CI strategy, like I said, near and dear to my heart, and try and do some real-time problem solving for you all. All right. And just ask that everyone's respectful, be thoughtful of what you share on the group, and chime in, help each other solve problems. I like it when you all speak up and add things. I definitely don't need to be the one talking. I've probably said this before, but I'll say it again. I used to do webinars. I don't love doing webinars. I'd much rather have a conversation. I think it's much more interesting. So you're part of making this conversational. Next month, Patrick Mitsuchi Stork is going to talk about how we combat chaos in the workplace. Patrick is black belt or master black belt at Boeing. And they, as you might imagine, they're doing a lot of focus on work practices. And so he's going to share a little bit about his experience there and, as always, answer your questions. So we'll send the registration for that after this session. That's going to be September 26th at noon. All right, cool. Fantastic. So here's my framework. And you can see it's a beautiful graphic. So, artistry is not my strong point. But as some of you have known me maybe longer than others, but let someone in. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, if you guys see someone pop up and can let them in, just do it because I'm not paying attention this round. So I've been working pretty much my whole career in terms of thinking about how you build continuous improvement into an operation. And it's not to say there's lots of frameworks out there that I've used over time. There's lots of like House of Lean type frameworks, books written on how you do lean transformation, that sort of thing. In my business practice, I've taken what I find to be most useful, simplified it, and turned it into the graphic that you're looking at here. And that's what I will use today as I cover your questions, so that I kind of tie back why I think this framework is really useful for the kind of work that I know a lot of us are out there trying to do. And so to explain it in a simple way, there's a foundation. Like any good framework, you have some kind of fundamental pieces. And I look at that foundation as roles and responsibilities and team governance. Now, what do I mean by that? It's so interesting. Job descriptions, I see them all the time, but I don't, I see them in the hiring process. I don't see them in the day-to-day work process quite as clearly captured and utilized. And what I end up seeing is a lack of role clarity or crossover between roles. Like it's not clear who really owns this. So person A decides to step up and just take care of it, right? And person B maybe should own it but doesn't. And that's a gap in roles and responsibilities. And I always start my investigation of continuous improvement there, because if people don't know what they're supposed to do, you really can't go any further. You can't get anything done without that role clarity. So roles and responsibilities is a fundamental piece of the structure that I look at. The next piece that I also look as fundamental is team governance. And this is really how I manage teams. It can be anything from what is the ratio of supervisor to employee, manager to supervisor. It can also be things that I also look at are how does that manager interact with their team? Do they have standards, tools that allow the team to elevate issues? Do they have measures to help the team know how they're performing? And so to me, right after you get clarity on a role or responsibility, the next thing is to know that you can reinforce those things through different team governance mechanisms. And there's many mechanisms there. The purpose of that, piece of this chart isn't to describe all the different ways that you might create team governance, but it's a recognition that if teams aren't being adequately managed, and if information isn't flowing down and up across the team, you really can't do any of the other things. Now, if I have clarity in the roles, and if I have strong team governance, then I can focus on the mechanics of the operation, and that's what I mean by workflow management. Okay. Production controls, if any of you are manufacturing engineers or industrial engineers, I should be able to track an order and know how an order moves through my operation and exits the building as a product being delivered somewhere. I should be able to track the forecasted demand, how that translates into a work order, either in a field service operation or maybe a client in a maybe like a financial operation, or a raw material in a manufacturing operation. And I should be able to track that work order from the point that I've scheduled it through the point that it becomes some sort of finished good, some sort of finished service, or some sort of deliverable, right? And so if I don't have clarity in that tracking, again, I'm going to struggle to validate how I'm performing, and certainly I can't get to process improvement. And then anything within that workflow That there should be records that are generated that allow me to understand the performance of the work being done. It could be simple cycle times, but it also might be yields through certain processes. It could be time standards, effort applied in different processes. But those information stamps, those data collection points are absolutely crucial so that I can do performance review, right? I have to capture records from my process, right? And this is basic ICE, honestly. ISO and any kind of certification like that requires that you have records from your process. Those records should become reports. Those reports need to get checked and reviewed at some point. Is it a monthly quality review? Is it a operations review, a plant review? It should also funnel back down into my team governance because it might be daily reviews that my team does to know how they're performing. Nonetheless, the output of my workflow management needs to be the kind of reports that I can use to go do performance review. And that's the source, at least one of the main sources of my process improvement. The things that I learned in performance review. Oh, we got customer complaints. Oh, we're having a yield problem. Oh, we're missing our delivery dates. All of those things funnel up and it creates my process improvement funnel. And it's interesting. I spend a fair amount of time with clients helping them just organize what they should work on, which I suppose with this audience, you probably are used to that. But some people are, they think it's just obvious what we should work on, and it's not. And usually it's not obvious because there's so many different things that we could work on. Performance review allows me to prioritize those things. So I'm attacking the stuff that's most important to my customer, most important to my financial well-being, most important to my my credibility or my brand recognition. And then that's how I'm using performance improvement. Now, that's the system as I see it. I set it on two pillars, right? And I separate those pillars in how I think about it because a lot of this is mechanics. I can touch a job description or a standard operating procedure, right? And know that I have roles and responsibilities, right? I can go out to the production floor and see people doing daily stand-ups, right? I can collect data and reports and know that I have good workflow management process review. But how do I know that I have the mindsets and the motivations within the organization that drive this as a dynamic system, right? Versus just kind of static. I can have all these things and never change anything. But I want to know that I'm actually using performance review to make changes in my operation. And I have to motivate people somehow to want to do that. And those people have to understand from a mindset perspective that every day they should be looking at what they're doing from the eyes of their external customer. And it is incumbent on them. It helps their longevity with the company, their own career, by identifying those things that are wasteful or are subpar from a customer's perspective, such that they should take action on it. That's the motivation, right? The mindset is think like the customer and recognize that there is waste and variation all around me. The motivation is by doing those things, I better myself, I better the company, and in actually Toyota terms, I better society. Like that's I believe in the Toyota production system. Someone might correct me here, but that bettering society is a component of how they try and motivate their organizations. So that's the framework, and I'm just going to show one last thing so that we can get into questions. Like any good framework, we use it as a gap analysis tool. Some companies will have us come in and just do a straight up gap analysis on where we think their strengths and weaknesses are from a continuous improvement perspective. And so we establish a current state in each one of these buckets: mindset and motivation, roles and responsibilities, team governance, workflow, so on and so forth. And, here's kind of the descriptions of what I was describing earlier in terms of what each one of these means in terms of the definition. And so we'll find all of these, we'll make statements or insights from all these things that we find. And we'll talk about why it's a problem, right? Because it's one thing for an external consultant like me to say, hey, you don't have daily stand-ups with your operation. Maybe they say, so what? Or you've got no leader standard work. You're more or less just expecting your supervisors to know what they're supposed to do on any given day, and you're not checking that. Here's why that's a pain point for you, right? It creates variation in this process, or it creates people get frustrated because something doesn't get resolved. So explaining the why of these gaps is really important, and then the projected benefits to solving them. So this is just a tool that I utilize to actualize this system that I'm describing. It's worked very well for me. That's why I'm sharing it all with you. And with that, I'm going to jump into some questions, but I'll pause actually. Does this make sense? Like, is this something that you could see very applicable in your own operation? Very quiet. No one wants to say anything. So I either have just blown your minds. That's what I'm going to go with. Maybe I just blew your minds with this content, or you're like, no way, Matt, this is just obvious stuff.
I'll jump in, Matt.
Yeah.
I liked the illustration that you did. I thought visually it was really good at tying things together, and it made sense the way you explained it. But what I really liked was that then you had the template to actually make it more concrete and to translate to this particular client, this situation, etc., in a very tangible way. So I'm going to steal that.
Yeah, go ahead and steal. There's nothing proprietary there. And thank you. The problem I always have with doing an evaluation or an assessment is, to me, they don't get to that tangible point enough. And then it just becomes a little bit too academic. And so that's what I was trying to avoid. Any other comments from what I shared?
Can you show that framework again, that template?
Yes. Give me just a minute here. So I kind of switched my screens up. Are you seeing that? Hopefully.
Yes. Could you maybe hide the taskbar so we can see the whole thing?
You would think I could. Whenever I click on this. Oh wait, there we go. No.
Right click on it.
There we go. Hide quick access.
You know what? Right click on, or you know what? Just pull up.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, we use the PDSA methodology, but this is very compatible with it.
Yeah, and I would say you could use PDSA inside of this. You could do a plan, do, check, act, or plan, do, study, act, inside of each one of these categories. And for anything that you find, you could use it inside of that. All right.
So, Matt, I'm going to go out on a limb and just admit that I do better with concrete examples. Do you have one of these that are populated that you could share with us that wouldn't be revealing anything proprietary?
No.
I was afraid so. That's what I thought you'd say.
I do have them populated. let me see if I can find an old one that I could share. That's a good request. I'll take that back, Chad. So let's see if we can pull some concrete examples through discussion. Let's do that. I like that. That's a good point, and that's of course what we're always trying to get to. So I'm gonna pick on Dylan is here. Okay, and the question that I asked was, what is the most significant obstacle toward gaining traction in your continuous program? And Dylan, you said, being so new to the organization that I'm unsure of obstacles at this time. However, an obstacle I faced at my last organization was CI struggled to really gain a broader adoption in the organization because we failed to broadly, publicly champion the CI framework, right? And that's kind of what I'm trying to talk about here. Outside of our project audiences. Additionally, there were competing ideas of operating model strategy. That's great. I mean, it's not good, but yep, by the executives. And CI was always just looked at as a tack on thing that many people were expected to do off to the side of their desks. I hope that sounds familiar to other folks because that's what I see. Yeah, I always see them nodding heads. So Dylan, can you maybe just elaborate a little bit on that? So what was your role inside of there and what did it prevent you from doing?
Yeah, I can share. So, and I can share, I know a little bit more since I submitted that response at the place I'm at, so I can kind of compare and contrast a little bit. So, I think the biggest challenge that the team that I worked on had was we were so small. It was me, another consultant, and then our manager. So we had a lot of very, like I said, ad hoc kind of project requests where we would come in and kind of lead people through either DMAIC or DMADV for, whatever their specific need was, if that was, to improve something existing or create something new. So, but it was very, like I said, kind of pocketed because there was like overarchingly a leadership, like not common ground on like what the operating model was. So we were doing something that was kind of a bit in conflict with the way that the I don't want to say in conflict, but not totally hand in hand with DMAIC and Lean Six Sigma. I think that was actually one of the first things I talked to you about privately, Matt, when we first met, was just like synergies between Lean Six Sigma and Agile, and that was I think kind of the struggle was to figure out what is the way of working, because process improvement there was really, like I said, an off the side of your desk thing that every leader minimally, if not other individual contributors, were expected to do, which I think we all have seen those scenarios where people think they know what process improvement is, but they don't really understand from a practitioner standpoint what it really is, so, and not to discredit people that are working to improve things in the area that they work, but there's a method to what we do, right? So
yeah, there's a right approach, right?
right.
And that's,
Yep.
I would strongly say I have a successful approach there. So my question, Dylan, is why didn't somebody, and it could have been you, but anybody, pull the cord and say, wait, before we do another project program around Lean and Six Sigma, let's get our framework nailed down. I'm assuming from your conversation that didn't happen, and I'm wondering why.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of it, like I said, led back to competing ideas of how ways of working should be done within the org. Whereas where I'm at now, it's very like our organizational construct for improving our customer experience is through a value stream framework. So everybody's on board with DMAIC and DMADV. They might not be super knowledgeable on what that is, but that's where our team comes
You're
in. We're
the line.
Yeah, we're the practitioners, we're the coaches. So I think that's where it was hardest for me, was there was just not that alignment to what we did. And like I said, it just turned into one of those, everybody's expected to do it off the side of their desk type of thing.
Which at that point, and this is why I wanted to start with your question, Dylan, because this is sort of the bottom line of my message to everyone, and that is have a framework, use the framework to define to create alignment, and really don't do anything else until then. Otherwise, you're trying to do continuous improvement in sort of a transactional way, right? You're deep in the how of continuous improvement, but you haven't addressed the why or the what that you're trying to address with continuous improvement. And you got to get that aligned. And in the example that offline Dylan and I talked about, I was at a firm that was very much agile, which comes with its own practices and disciplines and methodologies. And they had hired me to establish Lean and Six Sigma. And initially we clashed with that agile team. But both myself running our program and the individual running the agile program said, whoa, let's stop and let's get aligned. Here's what this methodology does. Here's what that methodology does. This is the end goal that we're trying to create. Let's figure out what our combined skills and knowledge bring and create a framework that works for the whole operation, delivers an end, and now we're all working towards that same goal. And that's, actually didn't have this framework exactly at that time. But nonetheless, stopping and saying, let's address this. Because to your point, Dylan, yeah, once everyone's agreed, hey, we're going to focus on value streams. We're going to turn our operations and our products into value streams. And we're going to look at things from a very lean lens. Wonderful. Let's go. But if you're not there, you actually have to go a step back upstream and create that alignment. So it sounds like your current company has this figured out, Dylan. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. And agile exists like in the organization as well, but it's specifically for IT delivery. So it's not as confusing, and people that actually support a lot of the IT delivery pieces are either designated or dedicated to specific development for a specific value stream. So I think the leadership alignment and direction on it really makes a huge difference, because it was uber confusing where I last was, and now it's like this is dream state for me. So
great. And another thing, because I'm just guessing some of you run into this, sometimes leadership doesn't know, right? They just want the improvement, but they don't really understand how to get there.
Yeah.
Our role is actually to educate them, right? We don't assume that they're going to figure it out at their level. They're not. Like, you got to raise your hand and go, hey, I think we're stuck. Here's why I think we're stuck. And let's have a discussion and use a framework kind of like what we're sharing here. Let's have a discussion around this framework to figure out what is the structure we're going to use to create performance excellence, right? To create continuous improvement. And so that's why I think you all have to be voices for that. Thank you, Dylan. Let's go to Scott. So your answer to the question of your significant obstacle is people. They're all different. Yep. I think I just said that about an hour ago in a separate discussion. Identifying, managing change, building rapport, strengthening relationships, gaining credibility, and demonstrating the effectiveness of improving the business through actual understanding and systematic thinking versus just throwing money at problems. So do you have a specific, maybe not too specific, but somewhat specific place where you see that happening?
I guess contextually where I'm at right now in my organization is we've got a lot of work going with our operations side of the business, and I'm trying to look at getting my foot in the door with our sales team and starting to iron out some processes for them and see if we can grow that.
Why does sales matter? Sales is its own thing. Like you don't have to
sales is it's not important to any business, so I don't know why we talk about it.
So what are you running into obstacle wise there?
For me, probably just getting started, the rapport building, getting into it. I think that's a lot of the opportunity for me to develop as a leader, is just kind of how do you kick into that. So I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily continuous improvement related, but that's kind of my journey and where I'm at, is like I've got to identify the contacts, who are going to be the optimal people to kind of target first, and where's that going to go, and what does that look like, and how do I start those relationships? How do I kick into those relationships so that we can start testing and trialing some improvements and something they're comfortable with, and I'm not scaring them away, but also that's going to get them bought in, and also kind of at the same time where I'm not owning it, they kind of take some of that leadership of this stuff as well. So
okay, so some of that is getting buy-in. Where, if you were to try and apply this framework, I threw it back on the screen. What gap do you think needs to get resolved in sales? Where are they struggling? Do they have clarity in roles and responsibilities? Do they have good workflows?
I mean, there's opportunity everywhere is maybe part of the problem.
What
But
opportunity would get them interested in talking to you? Like if they were to look at this, what would they go, you know what, Scott? Yeah, that is a problem that we need to fix.
I would probably go with um, probably workflow management would be an easy one for them, just kind of low-hanging fruit to clean up some stuff.
That was going to be my guess with sales. I mean, we actually helped a sales team build a sales playbook, which I would say was more in the roles and responsibilities area. But mature sales teams, if yours is mature, they kind of probably have that stuff already. Sales playbooks are pretty common. But what they lack, and I mean, in the last 20 years, sales teams have got much better at this, but still, it's not necessarily the profile of a salesperson isn't necessarily process controls. That's not their, discrete activities. But if you think of Salesforce.com or Pipedrive or any of these CRM tools, they're there really to create a production control in sales. And so I'm not surprised to hear you say that. And you
Yeah,
think that would get their attention?
I think so. We did fun little story. We just did a workshop last week with a couple of our sales teams out in the field, and then some office personnel, and it went really well. But we started with just a small problem. How to, on a segment of how do they submit a certain small segment of orders, and thinking this was just going to be kind of a quick fix. And we just uncovered so much good stuff to learn and help them with. And so we will be solving obviously the problem that we set out to solve, but we uncovered so much more opportunity as well. So it's good place to start.
And are they recognizing the need to put resource towards that so you can actually execute on those things that you find?
Yeah, I think the person that we got to help us kind of lead that or spearhead that from the sales side of the business had their eyes opened pretty well to kind of what we're trying to do. So they obviously it's, well, why can't Salesforce just fix this for us? And like when you actually look at the problem and what you're trying to accomplish, you're like, oh yeah, Salesforce literally doesn't even touch this issue anywhere, doesn't do anything. So
And it's an enabling software, right? If you're lacking
yeah.
the process clarity, then how are you ever going to use that enabling software? Good. Okay. Did I answer a question for you?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Good. Good luck with that. That's a great
Yeah,
one.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Absolutely. Let's go to Jeff. And Jeff's got a really simple one here, but I like it a lot. And your obstacle to gaining traction is getting people accountable. So, Jeff, can you give us a little more color on where you're struggling with accountability?
And Travis, feel free to chime in. Travis is a colleague of mine. We just I don't know how to describe it other than we struggle to hold people, certain people struggle to hold themselves accountable. There's a problem and no one, takes responsibility for it, so I think we need to improve our culture so that people hold themselves accountable. And right now we're in the R&D stage, so it's not as big a deal, but that's a killer in the commercial state.
Um, why don't people hold themselves accountable?
Well, number one, in general, if people can get away with it, a lot of times they will. And I think it's in some cases leadership doesn't hold their feet to the fire. I don't know, Travis, what do you think?
No, you're right, Jeff. One example I can think of is I'm on a biweekly manufacturing strategy meeting where we present metrics related to our operations, and the vice president of the company is on the meeting. He's, understandably busy with a lot of other things in operations. So whenever he can't attend that meeting, the other senior managers, directors, high level management, they decide, well, right, the vice president isn't making it, so we can cancel the meeting. Nothing really needs to be done if our backs aren't up against the wall, basically.
And that's a great example because when Travis was out on vacation, well, one of the things uh, that we did is we have certain metrics that we track. And initially we had no goals because we didn't have enough data. Well, once we had enough data, now Travis and I worked to come up with quantitative targets, right? So
Nice.
we were going to present that at one of the meetings, and all of a sudden we got a notice that it was canceled. So that's an example of, not holding ourselves accountable.
So one thing I'll say is raise your hand if you've ever failed to hold yourself accountable. Hold yourself accountable. Yeah, right. And keep your hand up if you've ever failed to hold other people accountable around you. Yeah, yeah, and I think you said part of. I'll just give the answer so we can keep moving. Right? There's two things that go on there. One is it's uncomfortable and we don't like it. We don't like it on ourselves, and even when we hold other people accountable, it's a little bit uncomfortable because it creates interpersonal discomfort. We'll have Scott Herbst on in November, so I hope you guys all join. But one of the things that Scott said to me earlier this year that I kind of love is he says it's an insidious problem inside of organizations because it's like it's part of my language. It's like a secret deal that we make amongst each other. You don't hold me accountable, I won't hold you accountable, and no one has to feel bad. Of course, that means those things that you guys were just talking about, Travis and Jeff, never get done because everyone goes, the boss didn't show up. Like, who wants to make a big deal about that, right? No one wants to do that. So let's just not do it. And then no one holds anyone accountable and we can all feel okay about ourselves. That is a race to the bottom.
And one other thing that I'll add is hopefully that's going to change, starting next month because we've implemented a new performance management system, an IT tool, and one of the things requiring is everyone has to do a self-assessment that can then be discussed with their supervisor or manager or director or whoever. So that'll force some of those difficult conversations. If I think I'm a stellar performer and my manager thinks I'm kind of mediocre, now that's going to force those conversations, even though they may be difficult or uncomfortable. So hopefully that'll lead to some change.
And you just said it, and I'll jump. I see a couple of people have their hands up. You have to, and I'll relate this back to the framework. You have to create environments where it's not just okay, but encouraged to call each other out, for lack of better words. Marcia, go ahead. You had your hand up first.
I was also just going to mention part of what I found when, in these situations where people aren't following through or holding themselves accountable, sometimes when you dig deeper, I found that it's because they don't really know how to do what they're being asked to do. So just a piece of information I just wanted to share with everyone, my experience, that sometimes, people will say, oh, yeah, I can do that. I know what to do. I know how to do it. And then time and time again, there's no follow through and there's all sorts of excuses. And then when you really sit down with the person, they actually don't really know how to get started or how to do it. So something to think about.
It is a 5 whys situation where you want to uncover that lack of accountability. And when you drill down, you may be surprised. I agree, Marcia. I've seen that as well. Chad, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, it just reminded me of, it might be a cultural thing for us in the Midwest, because who hasn't heard of the expression Midwest nice?
Yes.
Right? And people are afraid to rock the boat because I'll be nice to you if you be nice to me, kind of a thing. And so no one wants to call people out because they think it's rude.
100%. And that's back to creating a space where, again, it's not just okay, but encourage. Scott, you had your hand up.
I was just turned on to this concept through someone in one of my business groups, and it's tangential to the accountability concept. But if you use the word, kind of the concept of an expectation, which almost might be interpreted kind of from, hey, we want people to be held accountable. We have an expectation that they're accountable, that they're doing their jobs, that they're et cetera, right? So it's almost like an expectation that we're putting on them. But the concept that I learned recently, which kind of blew my mind a little bit, but it was really more of an agreement than an expectation. So in terms of having an expectation of people doing certain tasks or roles or responsibilities, it's like, hey, it's your job, you should do this. More specifically, especially as it relates to your interaction with them, there might be some opportunity to come to a little bit more specific agreement with them on what you would like them to accomplish and what they would like to accomplish, so that you both are on the same page. Just want to kind of throw that out there. There's a lot more to it, and I just kind of gave the 30-second version, but it was kind of an interesting concept for me, because I definitely see that a lot in my organization where I will put expectations on people, and they might not even have the same interpretation of that. So.
And Scott, what I hear when you say that is, it's like you're creating alignment, but you're giving the person who is going to be held accountable an option to maybe explain why they can't or shouldn't have to do this thing, right? Is that what it is? It's sort of like if they agree, now they have committed themselves at a different level than if I'm just committing them by giving them a directive.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely more towards that direction. Yeah, like kind of just communication, active listening, go back and forth, have an agreement about it rather than an expectation from a one-sided expectation about it. Make sure that you're both on the same page and have that alignment, like you said, Matt. Yeah.
So and that's another thing our performance management system is going to have. Individual goals are optional for this year, but next year they're mandatory. And so you put in your goals, your manager can edit them and make suggestions. So you have that agreement, sort of that contract.
So 100%. There's 3 places in this framework where I tie in accountability. The top is performance review. Obviously, those, like you're saying, Jeff, you guys are establishing a standard. A standard is an expectation. That's what it is. And realize every time somebody misses that expectation and it doesn't matter, it becomes less and less crucial and less of a standard. So that's a piece of getting performance review right. It's not just, are we having the performance reviews, but there's some teeth in them. The next place is team governance, right? Is how accountability flows down to a day-to-day kind of check-in and validation that we're making progress perspective, right? So teams have to have inherently inside them mechanisms for accountability. Again, spaces where the team can debate and challenge each other on what they're doing and what's working, what's not. And then the last component is the mindset. And the mindset has to be, like, back to Chad, your point, like I've used that term quite often, Midwest nice, where we go, you know, I don't know how to say it quite right. You can be respectful, tactful, and still challenge people. And challenging isn't just something we should be okay with, but we should actually encourage. And the mindset has to be the only way that we get to excellence is by challenging each other. So absolutely, I see accountability, and that's why I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to talk about this. But you know, that's why I wanted to make sure that we had, you know, we talked about your item there, Jeff, because I don't think this whole system starts to break down without that accountability. Time flies when you're having fun. Would you like to have more conversation around this topic? Yeah. Raise your hand if you'd be open to maybe introducing me to a manager or someone else on your team that we could have discussion in a smaller group on this topic. Maybe. All right. Well, I'll let you reach out to me if you'd like to do that. Otherwise, I can include this as a topic in future conversations as well. Thank you as always. I appreciate you guys coming to this and engaging, and hopefully you're all getting stuff out of this that you can take back to your jobs. Have a great day, and we'll see you in September.
All right, thanks.
Thanks,
Have
Matt.
a great day, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
See you guys.